if you want to dive deeper into our community of passionate listeners, then we have restarted our Patreon so that we can build a community of people. And we're calling that community the Bop Sao Dares. You can choose a level that suits you. You can become a Cafe Suada, a Banh Mi, a Com Tam, a Bun Tet Nung, or the ultimate level, you can become a Bop Sao Day. Join the fun with me and let's explore Vietnam together like never before. So hit that link in the show notes and join my podcasting adventure of a Vietnam podcast today. Cheers. Welcome to another episode of a Vietnam podcast with me, your host, Niall Mackay. Now, I've been living in Saigon for 8 years, and one of my favorite things to do is drink cocktails. And you know I'm Scottish, you know I don't like to spend a lot of money. I like to drink cocktails on happy hour, and where I'm at today is one of my favorite places in Saigon for happy hour. Now, my guest today is Australian Vietnamese. He's a bartender and one of the best bartenders in Saigon. And I know that can be controversial. Nobody likes to be called the best at something. And already I can hear the comments and people being like, he's not the best.
Definitely not the best.
I'm saying he's one of the best, so that's what I say. And he owns two of my favorite bars in Saigon with his partner, 86 Proof, and where we are today, Mami, which has just opened fairly recently.
December will be 1 year. So
goes by so quickly. It feels like it opened last month. And before we get started with our proper recording, Jason has offered to make us a cocktail because we're in a cocktail bar. And he's going to make his favorite, which turns out to be my favorite as well, which is a Negroni. And some people think it's a basic cocktail. It's just 3 ingredients. Why is it not a basic cocktail?
I think balance is very important with a Negroni. So Negroni is actually one of the cocktails that I get interviewees to make when they're applying for a job because it's a balance between sweetness, herbal, bitterness, and not all Negronis are built equal. Not all Negronis are definitely built equal. So
that was my cocktail of choice during lockdown because it is just 3 ingredients.
Okay, yeah.
I could just put them together, cut a bit of orange, pop it on top, and they'll be like, yeah, done Negroni. But there's so much more to it than that. So we're going to start this episode. Jason's going to show us how to make the best Negroni.
The best Negroni. Okay, so I guess we're in Vietnam. So what we do at Mummy is we try to really highlight our Vietnamese spirits and products. And I think for today, we're going to go with one of my favorites for Negroni, the Lady Jill Flower Bomb. Nice. So it's a very controversial one because it is quite heavy and quite floral on the nose. But I feel like once you add all the other ingredients, you get a really, really good product. So that's yours.
Thank you very much.
That's mine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
It's good Negroni, yeah.
Let's go have a chat.
Bartender.
So thank you very much for the Negroni. This is absolutely delicious. Cheers. Thank you for coming on a Vietnam podcast. Now, you mentioned about all Negronis aren't equal and how this one has an expensive vermouth in it. So I want to go back to the first time I ever went to 86 Proof. And I want to talk about cost in Vietnam and expectations and why things cost the way they do, right? Because in Vietnam, there's a wide range of choice. This is a difference from Australia where I've lived, New Zealand where I've lived, back home. Drinks generally, I feel like, fall in a narrow range, whereas in Vietnam, they can be wildly differently. You can buy a beer for 20K, or you can go to a craft beer bar and buy a beer for 200K, which is 10 times more expensive. There's very few places, I feel like, back home that the difference in price will be 10 times. Now, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. My life has gone through so many stages when I've been in Vietnam, been here for 8 years. Started off pretty much as a backpacker, drinking 10 Dong LaRue, 20 Dong Saigon Special. And I remember the first time we went to 86 Proof, and I think we went in, so it used to be in a different location on Xuan Thuy, and I looked at the menu and it was 250K a cocktail. Now, I'm not bigging myself up, but now I don't bulk at that price so much. As I said, my life has changed. I still go for happy hour more often than not, but I don't bulk at that price because it's like, okay, that's a reasonable price. But at the time, I was absolutely gobsmacked. I remember we walked back out and Adri's like, why are we walking out? I was like, it's 250K a cocktail like that. We can't afford that because at the time we were pretty much living life as backpackers. So why are some cocktails more expensive than others? Why are yours priced at that? And what do you think of those types of prices in terms of like some tourists and visitors to Vietnam?
I mean, I guess it's the same in
all markets, price is going to be dictated by location, the ingredients you use, and I guess who's making it. We're on Song Tui, and Song Tui is definitely not cheap. Rent here rivals anywhere in the world. Yes, most definitely. Rental prices here are absurd. And also the tax on alcohol in Vietnam is quite high as well. So you are paying a premium for maybe a product that from the UK, from that part of the world, gin is quite cheap up there. It's definitely not the same price here. So you are paying a markup, and also just sort of supply and demand. What makes, I guess, a dive bar to a cocktail bar different is the quality of the bartenders. And you pay for that. You pay for our knowledge. You pay for our expertise. You pay for our ability to sort of adapt to your palate and whatnot. And I think that's something that we do very, very well. Myself being brought up in the West, Vietnamese heritage, I understand both palates. And I think that's a very rare thing in Vietnam. Somebody who can understand what the foreigners want and also what the Vietnamese want, and try to find something in the middle that works for all. You know, could charge less. We would charge less. Obviously, we run a fantastic happy hour where people always go, oh, your happy hours are always so full, so packed. We actually don't really make that much money on a happy hour. It's just something to get the community together, provide a few hours in a day where everyone can come and have a drink. You could be somewhat of a higher status and come through, or you could just be somebody who doesn't have that much means, and you can come through for a $2 beer as well. You get the same service, you get the same experience, you get the same hospitality. I think it's very important, and we don't judge you on what you order or how much you order or how much you come. Everybody steps through our doors is a VIP basically, and I guess that's something that we do differently is hospitality. Yeah.
Well, I do love 86 Proof. I've talked about it a lot, and I want to get onto that in a second. But do you think that hurts Vietnam or hinders it that it is seen as cheap here? And have you had that reaction similar to my reaction? Somebody comes in, they're in their head, they're like, Vietnam's cheap. And then they see the price of these cocktails and they're like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, we see it a lot. Vietnam is cheap. Yes. I mean, Vietnam's a great country where you could live as cheap as you want or as expensive as you want. And more or less, you're going to get a pretty good quality of life. And like you, I've been through both shoes. We're a little bit more comfortable now, which is great. So we don't sort of balk at prices as much as we used to. But there, it was 8 years ago when I got here. I came with the mentality to live within my means. So, 10, 20K beers was a part of life. But now everything sort of has its purpose. You know what I mean? If I'm out with a certain group of people, then I might be there. If I'm out with another certain group of people, we might be somewhere a little bit nicer. And I think that's just, it's just what happens as you go through life. You sort of find what's comfortable. I know I could get a coffee on the street for 10K versus going to a nice cafe and paying 70, 80K, but I want the air conditioning and I want the comfortability and I want the clean toilets, and, you pay for what you get.
And you don't stay a student forever, right? Like I used to go out on student nights and have £1 vodka Cokes on a Tuesday night. Like you grow up. But I think what the problem in Vietnam is, and things like YouTube, influencers, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. How many videos are there? Like I see posts as well. Can I live in Vietnam for $1,000 a month? Like people come here with that mentality of they want things cheap. And like I said, I love nothing more than going out and having 10 dong laroos and some rice and some tofu, and then you get the bill at the end and it's like 120K, and you're like, I just drank like 8 beers and had food. How did I just spend $5? Now you go out on a night out, bill's generally a little bit different.
Vietnam is fantastic in the fact that there's something for everyone, and the place is a little bit more expensive. Just know there is a reason why it is that expensive, and that's nothing from stopping you from going to get something a little bit cheaper. And maybe we're just a sort of special occasion place. A lot of people see us as a very casual spot. A lot of people see us as a very high-end spot. Live within your means, but we try to provide a service that is comfortable for everyone and welcoming for everyone, no matter who you are or what walk of life you come from.
I love what you said there, though. You can choose to come here or not. And this is sometimes a problem. I think people just love to rant online. And, I've done a lot of podcasts in the past about craft beer. And I remember there was a comment about one of the craft beer places, and it was like, this is terrible. They charge so much money. I would never go there, blah, blah. I can't remember, a big rant online about the cost of it. And it's like, well, just don't go.
Just don't go.
Yeah, like, you know, it's not for you then. Like, I know these guys and they're not making billions of dollars. They're not making millions. They're not making thousands. They're barely making money. They're barely surviving, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't have a go at them for, especially the craft beer industry here in Vietnam. And that comes down to that cheapness. People expect to come and have a cheap beer.
I'll give you an example. We always get a lot of slack for not selling the normal run-of-the-mill beers. I'm talking like Tiger, Carlsberg, Heineken, and we only sell craft beer. It just fits more into our product range, right? It's still Vietnamese made, still Vietnamese owned, and it showcases a side of Vietnam that is very growing and very important to our beverage industry. I make more money if I sell Tiger. The cost on it is nothing, basically. I can get it on board, can of Tiger for 5,000 to 7,000, and I'm selling it for 50 to 70K. And that's a 10x markup. I'm not making that on a craft beer, but people always, oh, you only sell craft beer because you want to make more money. No, the revenue is more, but the profit margin is lower. And I guess people just don't quite seem to make that connection. And also, if there was a 50K Tiger on the menu, I'm sure you'd be drinking a lot more. It's not the direction or I guess the product that we want to push at the bar. It's not the sort of atmosphere that we want. It's not to say that's bad, but there are plenty of places that you can get a Tiger or a Heineken, but we sell craft beer because that's the beverage that we want to showcase.
Makes complete sense. I want to talk about two things you talked about. One is the hospitality industry and how that's surviving. And two, you mentioned earlier about the quality of the drinks, and it's something I need to share another story with you as well. Well, I think you already know this, so you know I put out a lot of content about my favorite happy hours and my favorite cocktail bars. And I don't know if you've actually seen them or not, but one of the things I repeatedly say is that the whiskey sour at 86 proof is the best. And I think we've talked to you in person even about that as well. And anytime we get whiskey sour anywhere else, it has to pass the 86 proof test. So Adrian and I will look at each other, we'll have a sip, and I don't think it's ever passed the 86 proof test. I honestly don't think we've ever had a better whiskey sour than the one from 86 proof. And even my husband here from Scotland, every time I go and have one, I send her a picture. She sends me pictures when she has whiskey sours back in Scotland, and she'll message me like, it's not as good as 86 proof. What makes it so good?
About $1 for every time I've been asked that question. I'd have about $20. But no, I'm actually quite happy you asked this because it's something that I've been trying to preach for a while. The state of our cocktail industry here it's very young. And I think a lot of people forget that. Our bartenders are very young. Cocktail culture in Vietnam in general is very young. It hasn't existed for that long. I would say 8 to 10 years old, with 5 years really being at the forefront. So if you ask most bartenders now, what industry do you work in? They will say, I work in F&B. So they really focus on the product, the food and the beverage. In Australia and America, the UK, Scotland, if you ask, what industry do you work in? More or less, we're going to say hospitality. So I feel like bartenders here and service providers here forget about the people aspect of the business. So coming back to your point, so your question on the whiskey sour, what do we do differently? Nothing. It's bourbon, it's lime, it's sugar, it's bitters, and it's an egg white. There's nothing homemade. And bartenders always ask me, what makes it so good? What's the homemade ingredient? Nothing. But you come through for the first time, and the owner-operator here is a dead art. People don't expect an owner to also be an operator. And with my partner, Rochelle, we're also the operators on a day-to-day basis. If you come in for the first time, and you come in by yourself, and I come out and introduce myself as the owner, I'm Jason. You introduce yourself as Neil. I go, we have the best whiskey sour. And you say, oh, great, let's just give me one of those. Whether or not it is the best whiskey sour or not, you've had a good interaction, you've met the owner, and you just had a very positive sort of experience. Now you come back on the first date the next time, and I come out to you and I go, oh, Neil, how are you? All of a sudden I've remembered your name. And that's a lost art. And you feel a little bit special because he's the owner, he remembers my name. And then you go to your partner or your date, darling, don't worry about it. They've got the best whiskey sour in Vietnam. Don't even look at the menu. So I bring you out 2 whiskey sours. And next time you come, and you might come with a group of work buddies, blah, blah, and I come out and we're very friendly. Neil, how's it going? Everybody's kind of like, oh, who is this Neil guy? Why does he know the owner? Guys. Best whiskey sours in all of Southeast Asia. Now I've got made that date, I've got your work buddies pushing this narrative that 86 proof has the best whiskey sour. Is it really, truly any different than any whiskey sour in town? Probably not. It's all bought ingredients. We don't do anything homemade. We don't do anything special. But the experience and the atmosphere when you're drinking the whiskey sour that we provide is everything. And that's why we have the best whiskey sours in Southeast Asia, because it's served with a smile and served with a conversation.
If you're like me and you're into craft beer, then you've got to check out our partner, Seven Bridges Brewing Company. They got 4 tap rooms across Vietnam, including 2 here in Saigon, and they're not just any brewer. They were actually recently named Champion Brewery of Vietnam 2024. What I love about them, though, is it's not just about the beer. They're doing some great work in sustainability, so you can feel good about what you're drinking, which is always a good thing, right? And here's a little insider tip. You can grab giant pizza slices. It's one of the only places I know of that does pizza by the slice, and they are amazing. And not only that, you can get them until 12:30 a.m. on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So trust me, it's the perfect late night combo. So if you haven't been there, make sure you swing by and see what it's all about. It's great beer, amazing food, and a really cool atmosphere. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now, when was the last time you stopped to appreciate the things that truly matter, like your family, your friends, your peace of mind? Life is full of surprises, and while we can't predict what's around the corner, we can take steps to protect the people we care about the most. I'm sure you can imagine the emotional and financial strain your loved ones could face if the unexpected happens. Without a plan, the challenges they face could grow unnecessarily difficult. That's why having the right life insurance matters. And our partner, Tenzing Pacific, specializes in making it simple to secure your family's future. With flexible, tailored coverage from trusted international providers, you can rest easy knowing your loved ones will always have the support they need. In under just 30 seconds, you can get a quote that delivers everything you need. Clear pricing, comprehensive coverage, and the confidence that your family is protected. Start today by speaking with a Tenzing advisor, so click the link in the show notes to explore your options and take the first step towards securing your family's future. So I'm laughing when you started listing off the ingredients. I'll tell you why. This is really, really embarrassing. This just happened last week. Me and AJ had a whiskey sour. I can't remember where we're from now. You'll never guess. I turned around to her and I said, "It's in a whiskey sour, it's gin, right?" And she just looked at me. She just looked at me. And it took me about a second. And I was like, "It's fucking whiskey in it."
Yeah.
I just forgot for like a heartbeat. I was trying to... Anyway, so let's move on from that. But so it's interesting you're saying about how cocktails are so new here. This is again why I love Saigon, why I love Vietnam, things that everything's so new. I mean, I think even... I don't know, I've lived here for 8 years. I reckon even cocktails probably in the West have taken off more than they have in the last 5-10 years ago. You used to go out and have a beer or a whiskey Coke or a rum and Coke. Now you go out, you expect an espresso martini. So I don't know what it's like in the West, but I know here it's different. Misha's talked about it before. When he was first here 10 years ago, ordering like a Jack and Coke was like a cocktail, and people, or you'd order a cocktail, people didn't know how to do it. And he's talked about as well how there was, I can't remember exactly who it was. There was somebody over here and he was just so impressed with the staff and the young people and how excited they are to learn and the quality of the staff, which always comes back with Vietnamese people, right? Like the quality of the staff. I know a guy to make catamaran boats and he just talks about how the staff are amazing. Like it doesn't matter whether it's cocktails or catamarans, the Vietnamese staff are incredible. But tell me a little bit about, you mentioned the industry here, and I know because I've obviously talked to a lot of people from within the industry, it's been tough lately. And how did COVID affect that? Is it coming back? How's it going?
Yeah, COVID was a wrench in the works, obviously. Those who have followed our journey over the last sort of 6 years, so 86 Proof just recently turned 6.
Is that all? I've been here 8 years. I just feel like it's always been here since I've been here.
I mean,
Wow.
back then there just wasn't much sort of.
So when I
happening.
walked in that first time, it must have just not been long open because it was not long after we'd been here.
August 2018, I think. So we opened as a little tiny 20-seater whiskey bar. A little bit of a passion project. A little bit just to see how the Vietnam market, cocktail culture. And at the time of Sung Tui. Sung Tui now, if you've been here or you know it, there's a business every sort of property, right? Before it was definitely not like that.
You were one of the only guys here.
Yeah,
remember?
So it was us, it was Aperitivo.
Beer craft was a hole in the wall.
Yeah, so it was, a different time, and it was only 8 years ago. So it wasn't, 6 years ago, it wasn't that long ago. Those who came before us, who tried to do cocktails in Tao Ding, again, going back to the owner-operator thing, it just didn't exist. So the only thing that we did differently is we brought Western hospitality to a Western populated area. Just gave people a little sense of home, I guess, where the owner comes out and will remember your name, will remember your order, will pick up a conversation where we left off from the last time. And we built a really good relationship with our community. Cocktail culture here it is quite young. And like you said, the talent and the staff is amazing in terms of product. They picked it up really quickly. You got to understand that Vietnam has got internet quite recently. I would say 10 years, where it's open internet. So we have such a young population here and such a large population. The median age is somewhere around 35, 36. We're babies. So we're still very impressionable. You've got subcultures that are influenced by K-pop, J-pop, American hip-hop, whatever it is, we probably have a dedicated market for. And cocktails is definitely one of them. Cocktail culture is definitely one of them. However, as good as they are at the product, and a lot of these bartenders that are 22, 23 are much better than me. They have failed to really grasp the importance of hospitality and people, where they believe it is of no fault their own because they haven't really had direction, that if I'm able to make a really good drink, I am a successful bartender, which to me is 30% of the job. The other 70% is being able to connect with customers. And I always tell my staff, if a customer books a celebration, a birthday, an anniversary, whatever, that's normal. That's expected because people want to celebrate. But if customers are coming to us with problems, with stresses, just to have somebody to talk to, that's when you've really made it as a bartender, because you will have that person for the rest of your life. And wherever you go, that person will come, because it's not about the bar. It's not about the product. It's not about the price point. It's about where you are, and you are the person I need right now. So that's what we've been able to do with our customers. And we've had customers who've walked through the doors when we were 20-seater.
I looked there because you pointed. I thought there was a customer coming.
Yeah, we've got customers who've walked through the door when we were little 20-seater, small bar, to now where we're 150 seats.
Is that how many?
Yeah,
86 proof?
100 downstairs and about 40, 50 upstairs.
Yeah.
So people love the story, and they love that they've seen us grow throughout the years. And honestly, we've all really grown together. 6 years ago, most people came as lost sort of people trying to find their way, and now a lot of us have found our way. We've come through together. We've shared a lot together, and we've drunk a lot together. And I guess it just gives people a sense of home. And that's what separates us from Vietnamese owned businesses, is that Western hospitality and that Western connection that we've been able to build.
So how has the industry been affected though? Because I hear it's difficult right now for hospitality, and you've just opened a second place, which, as you mentioned, is coming up for 1 year. And I read this, that bars are closing or hospitality is closing. Hospitality's not doing well. But at the same time, I see a new place open nearly every week, new coffee shop opening every week, and packed instantly if they're done well. And I want to add one more caveat to this question. You mentioned about how you do well as an owner-operator bar, and Vietnamese bars maybe don't do so well. Another thing I've noticed a lot, and I'd love you to comment on this, is that when a bar does well, not just a bar, anything does well, you'll often have a copycat which will often be Vietnamese owned. They see the success of something else and they try and copy it. And my example of this is a bar that I go to every week and host a quiz night at. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to denigrate the bar next door to it, but there's a bar that's open next door to it, and it's been open and shut, open and shut, open and shut for over a year now as they try and replicate what they see next door. And this bar, Rabbit Hole Irish Sports Bar, is super successful. They built a community, and I know how hard the owner Ian has worked at building a community. Doing our quiz night once a week is just a part of that. They do sports night. He's worked hard to build a community. And then you see a bar open next door that has the same pool table, has the same TV screens, and it's empty every week. And I can only imagine that whoever is the owner of that is going, wait, why is this empty? Why are we empty? Because next door they're packed every night and we're the same? Am I right in my interpretation of that?
Yeah, most definitely. I think that's a very, very common story. So we are doing it tough right now. I think the whole world's doing it tough. So economically, we are down. It always starts with the guys up top. So I'm a marketer by trade and a little bit of an economist by trade. It's not something I practice as much anymore, but I'm very fascinated by trends and the state of the economy. And we are in a pretty harsh global recession right now. And Vietnam is no different. And the guys up top, the 1-2% don't have their spending power, then it trickles down. We've been able to recognize that quite early on. It was always going to be a fallout of revenge spending, where there's a big, massive peak and upturn and followed by a downturn. So we were able to, I guess, really capitalize on the upturn straight after COVID because we knew it was coming and really plug and forecast for this downturn. Hence, the 86 gave birth to Mummy. 86 proof, if you've been there, you would notice that our clientele is mainly made up of foreigners, expats. And I'm talking white skin English speakers. They love a good product, but it's not the be all and end all of their experience. So we have the staff and the personnel over there to cater for that. And Mummy was a very calculated decision. We knew we were going to open in a very, very rough climate. And people were always questioning me going, why would you open a bar 40 meters apart from each other that both do cocktails and both do bar snacks? And I said, if I got my sort of planning right, I predict that we will have a completely different sort of clientele. And Tao Ding, District 2, it's a very affluent area, but there is the expat and then there are also the elite Vietnamese, the influencers and the celebrities and just Vietnamese that come from a sort of different sort of standard, different sort of world. And that's who we've been targeting here. So, it's a different sort of marketing. It's a different networking to bring them through, provide them a space that they're comfortable with, throw events and collaborate with businesses that they know. And I think we've been able to do that quite well, where we still cater for our 86 customers. And here we cater to a completely different type of clientele. We knew that the overheads on Sung Tui were still always going to be quite high. You've noticed we don't really throw many events for 86 proof throughout the years. But here we throw really, really big events. And why? We can throw one event a month and then we'll be able to make our overheads paid for. So we're safe for the rest of the 29 days. So whether or not it's busy or it's quiet, we can ensure ourselves that we will be at a profit and we can survive. And right now it is about survival. A lot of bars and a lot of restaurants are relying on great product to get them through. And unfortunately, with the state of the industry and how young it is, our clientele just aren't exposed or educated enough to really differentiate between good product and great product. And that's normal. It'll come with education. It'll come with exposure. It'll come with as more and more Vietnamese are able to travel abroad and come back and bring back those ideas. But our providers, our bartenders, our chefs are so focused on the product that they forget about the experience. However, the Vietnamese market just aren't quite there in terms of, can I differentiate a great product to a good product or bad product to a fantastic product? At the end of the day, what they're going to come back for is a great experience and a great vibe and a great atmosphere, because we don't have a shortage in supply. Song Tui alone, there's, 30 cocktail bars. And the fact that people still come to us on a day-to-day basis is not because we do the best of anything in terms of product, but
Apart from the whiskey sour.
Apart from the whiskey sour. Because I guess it's cliche to say, but we genuinely do care. And we generally are very thankful that people keep returning back to us. So it is quite tough at the moment. The economy is quite tough at the moment, but it's not impossible. But you can't just put something up and hit and hope. You do have to be very proactive, and you do have to be very reactive. That's the difference between, I guess, business and being a provider. You have to have both.
Yeah. One thing I've learned about Vietnamese people over the years is they are very focused on price, whether they're wealthy or not. And we like to, it's a kind of stereotype of the tourists coming over here and they want to haggle. But from what I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, Vietnamese people love to haggle on price. I had a friend who had a business and she was like, she gave up on it because she was like, it just couldn't handle it. Every time someone wanted to book something, it was just like, can we get this price? Can we get this price? Like they want cheaper, And so how does that work in this situation? Because the thing about Tao Dien, where we are now, and I've lived here and I spend a lot of time here, is it is known as an expat enclave or an affluent neighborhood. There's a BP compound and there's a lot of wealthy expats. But as we've talked about, as One Tui has developed over the years, one of the things we noticed, Adrian and I, is the amount of affluent Vietnamese people that come here, way, way more. I mean, if you see somebody in a Bentley, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a Vietnamese person. If you see someone in a Porsche, Ferrari, a Lamborghini, whatever car it is, it's not going to be an expat. It's going to be a young, good-looking Vietnamese guy, generally with a young, good-looking Vietnamese woman in the passenger seat. Is that your clientele? And are they still discerning on price, even though they've got the flashy cars and they're probably decked out in flashy jewelry and clothes and things like that?
No, I guess they're...
Or is it status? They want to be seen in money?
They want to be seen.
Yeah.
They want to be seen. And for the first 6 years of 86 Proof, so we've had it for 6 years. The first 5 years, we've been able to stay pretty low-key, pretty private people, just keep our heads down and service our clientele. If you came to 86 on a regular, then you knew who we were. If you didn't, you probably didn't know who Jason and Rochelle were. That's because we are very private people. The market and the customer base at Mummy need a figure. They need somebody to connect with. So that's why I guess in the last year, I've been a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more public as a bartender, doing a lot more guest shifts. And the guest shifts that I do where I go to another bar and I take over for a night is basically to, again, show the industry, the young bartenders that, yes, there is value in being very good at mixology, but being able to create an atmosphere and an experience and connect with your customers and turn up a party and make it a very memorable night is what will drive revenue and money. The affluent Vietnamese, they connect with that figure and they'll look for that figure, and they more or less, once you have them, they're very loyal people and they'll always support whatever you do. On the opposite side, we have to support whatever they do and give them a safe space for them to whatever it is they want to do, have a couple of drinks and just not be bothered or feel a little special and whatnot. It is very different servicing both sort of markets. However, I think that's one of our strengths is we're able to recognize that.
Hello, I'm Steve Ahern, one of the judges of the Asia Podcast Awards. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that you're listening to an award-winning podcast. This podcast won its category in the 2024 Podcast Awards, so you know you're listening to quality. Enjoy your listening experience, and congratulations to the team who created this award-winning podcast for you.
Have you ever had a Vietnamese celebrity come in and you don't know they're a celebrity?
Oh, mate. All the time.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that if I meet you and you're dolled up and you're dressed in the nines and you come in the next day, we could spend all night together chatting. You come back the next day and you're not in the same outfit, I'm not going to know who you are half the time. And it's definitely a skill and definitely a part of my toolbox that I've really had to consciously develop this year is names. And just remembering who people are. And I'm not I look Vietnamese, but I did grow up in Australia, and I don't know these people. I'm not young, so I don't know these influencers and these KOLs, and I know they got me a little bit of trouble at the start of it. People are like, how does this guy not know you? Who does this guy think he is? That he doesn't know who I am. No, honestly, I'm really bad with faces and really bad with names. But yes.
Remind me what's a KOL again, because to me it's Kings of Leon, because they were one of my favorite bands. What does KOL stand for again?
Kings of Leon have a great, like, fire is great.
Yeah.
It is key opinion leader.
Key opinion leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a fancy
Basically a fancy word for influencer.
Influencer. It is a very fancy word for influencer, yes.
The reason I asked you is because I emceed a charity night a couple of months ago, and so I was trying to get money from people. You got to get a bid, get the bids up, and we raised a lot of money. It was exciting. It was fun. First time I'd ever done something like that. And there was this one guy who'd bid a little bit, and so I kept going back to him. And he had like really nice clothes on, nice table. He was buying things for his partner. She was dressed nicely. And he had a really nice pair of shoes on, but no socks. So I kept coming back to him. I was like, this guy is so rich, but he can't afford socks. And was like, just kind of having a laugh with him. And he was loving it as well. And it wasn't until afterwards someone was like, do you know that's the guy from like Shark Tank? He's super famous. I was like, no, I have no idea. Why would I know that? I don't watch Vietnamese Shark Tank. Like all the bids that he was buying, he could have just bought that anyway. Like he didn't need you to do that. But I was like, it's fun. It's part of the act.
I think the reason why a lot of celebrities and influencers are able to come to Mummy is because we don't treat them like they're celebrities.
Because you don't know they're a celebrity.
Because we don't know. But treat everybody who walks out the door like they're a VIP. So there's no difference, and they don't feel like that they need to post something just because I've had a chat with them. They don't feel the pressure to show out or anything like that. They know they can come in here and they're just going to get friendly hospitality. And a lot of these influencers and celebrities, they would have spent time overseas where they've been exposed to that service culture and that sort of hospitality that it's very rare to find in Vietnam. And it is still quite rare to find in Vietnam. It's also sort of a point I'm trying to push with our industry and our talent and our workforce, that it is very, very important to be able to do that. And it is a skill that is worth developing. And that's why people have a lot of love for us or can gravitate towards us, is because you walk in here and we'll know your name and we'll know your order, and we're going to treat you the same whether or not you're a billionaire or Tom, Dick or Harry.
Billionaire and dong, because that's a bit different than dollars.
If I had $1 billion dong, I'd be a happy man.
Yeah, me too. $1 billion dong is still a lot.
I'll take that.
So you mentioned, obviously, you're Australian Vietnamese. Whereabouts in Australia did you grow up, and what was it like growing up Australian Vietnamese?
Yeah, so we grew up in Melbourne, the western suburbs of Melbourne.
My favourite city in the world. Lived there for 4 years.
Amazing.
Love it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I never knew that, actually.
Yeah.
So we grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne as refugees. My parents came to Melbourne in the late 80s, and nowadays it's a very typical refugee story. But at the time, it was not a story that was told so much, and you always kind of felt alone because it just wasn't something that people spoke about. The Vietnamese diaspora in Melbourne were keep your head down and work and get through and do whatever it takes to make yourself successful or to build a life that is worth the sacrifice that we made coming through here. So I was the first child of my family, and once we got settled in Australia, we moved to, I guess, a very predominantly white neighborhood, even though we're still out in the West. But we kept connection. My parents did a really good job in keeping connection with our Vietnamese roots. Very heavily involved in the Buddhist temple, where my dad was one of the founding members of a Vietnamese sort of youth group. So I always had a very close connection with our Vietnamese community through that part of it. But growing up predominantly in a white neighborhood where all my friends more or less look like you, I wanted to really just belong in that world, and there was just really no way you could. I grew up playing a lot of AFL football and cricket, and I didn't want to go to Sunday youth group because I wanted to go play footy with my mates. And everywhere you were, the token Asian kid, it is what it is. My parents got involved in business around what age when I was about 10, were able to open up like a milk bar. So for those that don't know, a milk bar is like a bodega or just like a convenience store where you set up at the front and you live in the back. So by age 9, 10, I'm working behind the milk bar where my parents are doing what they do and selling some cigarettes and newspapers and milk. And our community was predominantly very like senior citizens. I was very much raised by the community of these senior citizen Australians who I see every day, and we just become part of their day. We become the place that they picked up a newspaper and a milk every day, or I knew who needed a newspaper and I can go and just bring it to them, and they'll take me to the footy. If my parents ever needed them to take me to school, they'll pick me up, take me to school. Just gave them a sort of sense of purpose and whatnot. So hospitality was born then for me. And you got a 10-year-old Vietnamese kid behind a counter selling you Marlboro Lights. It's different.
Not in Vietnam. It's the same here in Vietnam.
Oh, mate, it's normal here.
But in Australia, that like what?
Yeah, so that Western hospitality was sort of born there, where I was connecting with our customer base on a very personal level from a very young age. But yeah, growing up in Australia, you weren't very proud of your heritage.
Well, I was going to ask, did you feel connected to Vietnam? Did you know much about it growing up, or did you feel like an outsider? Because, I mean, I've lived in Australia and I love Australians, but I know there are a lot of Australians who are casually racist. The whole kind of like, I'm not racist, but I'm going to say something really racist with no qualms.
Yes.
Like, it's an interesting society, Australia. Probably not that different to other societies, but I've lived there. I know the people, and I know there's some unbelievable people.
Yeah.
But there is also a section that are like that.
So my generation growing up, I can't say we were too proud of our Vietnamese heritage because we were a minority. Nowadays, I think people are a little bit more expressive about their culture, and it is, a point of pride for a lot of people, and I feel it's absolutely fantastic. Nowadays, Vietnamese food is classified as one of the top cuisines in the world. But when I was going through school and you had a braised pork belly with rice, you're hiding that. You just want a PB&J sandwich or ham
some
and
white
cheese.
bread. Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking back at it going, why? Why would I trade in this amazing braised pork dish for a PB&J sandwich? Because we just wanted to fit in, right?
All cultures are the same as well, right? Doesn't matter.
I played footy where we played in the country, and this is 45 minutes away from CBD Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's very racial. Like the insults that I got were very racial that I had to just put aside as normal. Looking back at it now, it's some of the stuff that was said was definitely not okay. My nickname in high school from teachers
I'm scared to hear what you're going to say right now.
was Gook.
Fuck.
That was
No,
my
it
name.
wasn't.
And we're not, like, I'm not that old. I'm 33, so we're not even going back that long. But it was normal. And I didn't even really know the impact of that word till after I graduated high school. But that was a normal thing, that my nickname was Gook.
But was it said with like jest? It wasn't said to
No, it definitely wasn't said to offend.
Yeah, because so even this is what I'm saying. It goes across generations and it goes across races. So I worked in a summer camp in America 22 years ago, and one of the guys was there on the camp was Joe Lopez. So his mum was Irish, his dad was Mexican, and I was friends with him. Everyone was friends with him. He's one of the nicest guys, and people would call him Wetback and Beano because of his Mexican background, and it wasn't really said to offend. I mean, it's just what young people do, right? You're just saying shit about somebody.
Exactly.
And he would laugh about it. But now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was, especially now my wife is Mexican American. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I said that to him.
Yeah. People, I don't know, say that different time.
It is a different time, but I think even then it was still terrible.
Yeah. And I knew that even though that's what they were calling me, these people loved me. It was just the culture. However, it's just something that probably wouldn't fly today.
You'd be fired in a heartbeat.
100%.
It would be all over the news, you know what I mean? It's
But
crazy.
I guess we grew up with a little bit thicker skin back then. That's the upbringing that we had growing up through my teenage years and early 20s. You're not built 6 foot like everybody around you. And
they're tall in Australia as well.
That's
they're
it.
Big guys.
That's it. I'm not a small Vietnamese guy, but I'm definitely not a big person. So it's just part of growing up.
Do you think now, because Vietnam, I feel like has been showcased all around the world in so many amazing positive ways. Food obviously is one of them, but fashion, coffee, movies. There was the woman that was in the Star Wars. I forget the name because there's so many Star Wars movies now. Who's Vietnamese? You know the woman I'm talking about? It was like the remake of Star Wars. I forget because, again, there have been so many. Do you think now there's more of a sense of pride of the Vietnamese community overseas? Do you get that from back home? Do you get a sense from Vietnamese people that you know back home from your parents that there's a more pride to be like, yeah, no, I'm Vietnamese and fucking awesome?
100%.
That's so amazing to hear.
100%. My generation, a generation have come after me, have realized what an incredible story that our parents have. Something that we were so ashamed of at the start, that, we came on boats and want to send the boat people back, blah, 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 this and that. Have you had to ever go through anything like that? And the resilience and the determination it takes to jump on a boat into that vast ocean with nothing, just to hope to come out the other side, is an incredible story of resilience, courage that we have recently become very proud of. Food is one of the best cuisines in the world overall. And now that people are starting to recognize that, we have immense pride in that. Now that we've got 2 to 3 generations of Vietnamese diasporas, we're educated and we have means and we have value and we've become leaders in our industry all around the world. And we're taken with a lot more respect. And I guess that's given us a voice. The internet and social media has given us a voice and a platform. And people have taken to our stories with a lot of interest. And a lot of people can relate also. And I think the unity to the fact that these stories that we heard growing up aren't unique, that so many different people around us have experienced the same thing. We're able to share amongst each other and help each other as well and really unify. And I think that's been a really big sort of pushing factor for the Vietnamese diasporas that have come my generation and after, that we're not alone and we have a support network and grow together and support each other. That's been a really key factor in our pride, our national pride. Yeah.
Talking to young Vietnamese here, talking about these people that have means, do you feel like there's a renewed hope in Vietnam, or they have that sense of like things are pretty awesome here? Because I know for us as expats, like we love it here, but we have such a different story and different things to compare it to. What is the sense among young Vietnamese people about life in Vietnam today?
Right. So that's a very good question, because it's changing right now as we speak. That I've been here for 8 years and my parents hated the fact that I came back to Vietnam.
I've heard this before from other...
And you have to understand that it's a country that they risked everything to flee.
To leave, right? And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go back. I've heard this before. And they're like, what are you doing? Do not go back. You're going to be kidnapped. You're going to be drugged. Your organs are going to be harvested. Like, do not go back. It's unsafe. Like, did you have all the same things as well?
And my dad and my family were South Vietnamese soldiers. So this is a country that is not their country. And a soldier will always be a soldier. And your allegiance will always be to your allegiance. And this is a country that took everything from us. And here I am just waltzing back to open arms and making that choice. So I can't say anything about that because that is a very strong reason. Years ago, I guess, the white man was still king here. Yeah, and I'm talking specifically in our industry as well, where all our leaders were expats of a Western nature with white skin. Vietnamese Việt kiều, so we're sort of Việt kiều. A Việt kiều is somebody who was born in Vietnam, left to go abroad, and have come back. I was not born in Vietnam. I was born overseas and I've come back. So technically to that term, I'm not a Việt kiều. However, we just group ourselves all up under that umbrella. Early 2000s, I think there was a big invitation for Vietnamese diasporas to come back and let bygones be bygones. We want to start rebuilding and shaping that culture. And I think that was a really good sort of initiative by the Vietnamese government to invite everybody back. So we made it very easy for us to come back with visas and work permits and whatnot. We pretty much had like free reign. We got 5 years straight off the bat no questions asked, just because of your last name, right?
Which was probably Win, but not in your case.
Not in my case. I'm Pham, bruh. Pham gang. So nowadays, and this is more recently in the last year or so, a lot more Viet Gills are starting to flock back here because of the opportunities that we are presented with here. And that is taking our industries to the next level. Now that you've got somebody who can connect both, who are bringing Western sort of processes and creative thinking and talent and whatnot, but being able to also communicate that to our workforce and to our staff and to our industry in their language and connecting with them a little bit more culturally, it's doing wonders for our industry and for our economy. We're going to see that a lot more now that we've been exposed and we're educated and we're trained abroad. And we're coming back to Vietnam because of opportunities. And one of my mentors back then, when I was deciding whether or not to come to Vietnam or not, he gave me a very important piece of advice. And he said, you live in an economy like Vietnam once in your generation. And we're talking like, say, Australia in the 80s or America in the 20s, the 30s, and in the 60s, where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just got to do it. And you've got precedent and you've got a handbook on how to remedy any problems because you're not doing anything new. I opened a whiskey bar. Whiskey bars have been around for hundreds of years. It's nothing new, but people are looking like I reinvented the wheel. No, I just did it how I seen it being done. So yeah, in terms of that, we're able to grow from ground zero up. So he said, you live in an economy of Vietnam once. You are the median age of the population. You speak both languages. You know both cultures. If you don't move to Vietnam now and give it a crack, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life because you will never, ever live in this economy again with this many ticks. You might find another economy that's developing, but you're not going to speak their language. You're not going to be the median age. You're not going to know their culture. So give it a crack. And Australia ain't going anywhere. It's still going to be there. And I guarantee you, you give it 2 years and you come back in 2 years, nothing's going to change. And I think that's very, very true. So a lot more people are starting to understand that and they are coming out and they are imparting their knowledge and their wisdom and their training onto our market and developing very, very quickly.
That's amazing. What an amazing piece of advice. And
yeah, definitely changed my life. So
I can't think of a better place to finish on that. So thank you so much. It's been amazing to hear your story and share it with people. I know there's so much more to know, but thank you so much. This has been incredible.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you for the drink. It's gone down very well. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, go on all the social medias, follow us. But the biggest thing you can do is follow and subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're following from. Turn on notifications. It does help. The biggest thing that you can do is share it with somebody that also loves cocktails, that loves Vietnam, that loves hearing stories about Vietnam. And if you want to become part of our community, if you want to become a Bop Sao there, then go to patreon.com/a Vietnam podcast. You can join for free or for as little as $1. We want you to be part of that community. And I'm actually going to have a conversation with you right after this about our next community event that we're going to do. So join Bop Sao there, become a Bop Sao there, join patreon.com/a Vietnam podcast. Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been amazing.
It's been really, really fun. It's been a long time coming, but we got there. We got there.
Cheers.
Thank you.